After being self-distanced for the majority of 2020, I have come to the realization I may be lacking some social interaction. I know, I usually talk about myself being a person who doesn't socialize a lot. I really like to say that I have an extremely low social battery. I'm a pretty anxious person. The amount of unneeded stress I go through when I hear this is insane. But like many people say, you don't know what you have until you lose it. That doesn't sound right, but you understand the gist. Before, I was able to control how much I socialize, but being cautious about the health of myself and those around me, I wasn't allowed to hang out with a lot of my friends anymore. And after some self-reflection and having an existential crisis about my place in the world, I watched Disney Pixar's Soul and went on with my life. But I remembered a game that I think was not only fun when I was younger, but would be a totally dope game to play as adults, because kids playing it nowadays might be a little dangerous. And no, it's not bar tag, even though I went into great detail about how much I love that game. It's a different one, but I'm gonna give it a different name since the original name, or the name my friends and I used to call it, could be taken in bad context. So I'll call it hide and seek, but bigger and in the dark, and can include cars, if you legally can. If I somehow become social enough to find a group of people to play this game with me, I actually think it would make a really fun video to watch. So if someone else plays it, then records it for content, well, yay! Time for more background and rules that probably aren't relevant to your life, or may upset you because you might have played this game differently. So as I said, it's bigger hide and seek, and this game is probably more fun if you have a bigger group. So you have those who are hiding and those who are seeking. It's nighttime. You establish a base that the hiders need to get to be considered safe. And guys, when I say hide and seek but bigger, I mean bigger. Can't wait for that to be taken out of context. Usually in hide and seek, you're in a house or a small section of the outside like your front or backyard, but when I played, usually we had a whole couple blocks within the same neighborhood or even an entire park, which looking back at it now, I don't know how we managed not to lose anybody. Alright, hiders hide within that vicinity. There's no hiding outside the boundaries that are set. The rule was that whenever the hiders ran for the base, they had to use a flashlight. First for safety, so that you don't trip in the dark, and second, so it won't be completely impossible for seekers to find you. Basically, anytime you're not in your hiding spot, you had to turn on the flashlight. Running to base, flashlight. Looking for a new place to hide, flashlight. Spying on seekers, flashlight. Just walking around, flashlight. And that, kids, is what we call repetition. If a hider was tagged while running or hiding, they are a seeker now too. For the seeker side, you need to find all the hiders and try to make as many of them seekers as possible. Game ends when all remaining hiders are either tagged or at a base. Whoever reached the base wins. But if all hiders are turned into seekers, then the seekers win. But I would say there isn't really winners or losers in this game because it's supposed to be for fun. Now, remember I said you can use cars? Well, if you are playing in a huge neighborhood, you need an efficient way to skim streets for hiders. So beep beep, get in me car! And that's a possible option if it's safe and legal to do so. I only played this game with cars once, and that was only because my friend had an older sister who could drive. You know, when riding in trunks of trucks weren't really paid attention to. Every other time, we just ran. I swear, I always have the worst luck when it comes to these games because, and it's totally my fault, I'm always early to get caught. And if you saw me back then, you'd think I'd be an ace at the game. And I wouldn't say I was athletic, but I was fast enough because I still ran miles in PE. When I still had PE. And now I can't go upstairs without feeling winded. Most of the time, I sucked at the game because I'm clumsy enough to trip on something. Actually, maybe this is why I have such bad vision. Trying to play this game in darkness caused me to strain my eyes, trying to see anything. But it's all good because I personally think being the seeker is a lot more fun. I always had the guard position, where one seeker kind of just stays near the base and tags people as they run by. But don't worry, we made it fair enough so we weren't just sitting next to the door slapping whoever was next. We had a boundary around the base that seekers could not stand in unless they were already chasing someone. I think this game is super fun because it can last as long or as short as you want. If you put a time limit on how long the hiders need to get to the base, That'll really spice things up. I think using water balloons or something would be really fun too. Obviously, I'm not bitter about always being out early because it was also fun being caught. People think they're still on your side, and then you lose all their trust by betraying them and tagging them anyways. And I think being a little older now, we are able to make the game as crazy as we want, as long as you're responsible and not trespassing on people's property. I think that was our biggest mistake, because if I was a homeowner and I saw some random kid hiding in my bushes or next to my house, I would be suspicious too. But that was the early 2000s. Times were different back then. We still played outdoors and went back home when it was time for dinner. You see, if my memory wasn't trash, I could probably tell you all the cool stories I had from when we played the game. But since I can't do that, I can only record what I remember about how to play the game. So in the future, I can play it just as it was back then. Like someone tell Mr. Beast, because he'd probably be the one who'd throw an epic version of this game.